Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswati Ji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. How do we redirect ourselves from a situation that is causing us anxiety? Well, there's two possible situations. One, of course, is a situation where we literally can physically remove ourselves from and that would be a good thing to do. So I went out with some friends of mine to a dinner. I thought it was just dinner. It turned into an alcohol fest. Now everybody at the table is drunk. I'm not a drinker. They're starting to get very vulgar. I'm feeling very anxious and uncomfortable. I'm no longer enjoying myself in this moment. They're talking about leaving and getting into cars and going for thrill rides. Okay, now it's getting dangerous. Best thing, physically remove myself from the situation. But in many, many cases, the situation that we're in is one that, for many reasons, we can't or we shouldn't remove ourselves from. Because the last thing we want to do is be so fragile that there's this very limited number of situations. Jack Kornfield, who's a very famous and brilliant meditation teacher and writer and speaker, I'll paraphrase him, but he talks a lot about meditation and the meditative state. And he says, many of us, when we've had a deep experience of peace, of the divine, and then we come back to the quote-unquote real world, we try to create these sort of cocoons around us of what we need in order to maintain our peace. So I can't see you, I can't do this, I don't do the grocery shopping, you've got to take care of this, because to do any of these things, or to see any of these people, or to go to any of these places, ruins my peace. I'm really connected to God until I see my parents. I'm really connected to God until my boss yells at me. I'm really connected to God until I'm stuck in traffic. Well, that's not an ideal situation. Ideally, what we want is to have the maximum number of situations in which we can experience peace. And again, it doesn't mean every situation. There are some situations like the one I described where it's perfectly fine to say, okay, everyone, hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. It's time for me to go home, and we excuse ourselves. But mostly, these are situations that arise in our families, in our workplaces, in a world that we live in, and that we don't want to escape from, that we're not looking to run into a cave. And the answer then, of course, is to change who we are on the inside. The anxiety is produced because I have adopted or internalized what someone else said or did as what it means about me. I made a joke, no one laughed, it means I'm stupid. I said something that was serious, everyone did laugh, it means I'm stupid. See, all they've done is laugh or not laugh. I'm the one who's told myself the story. I'm the one who's internalized the situation about me. And this is where we talked earlier about being self-evident. The way to be in that situation is to just tune back into the self. The minute anxiety starts to arise, to ask ourselves, what am I telling myself in this situation? How am I interpreting what this person says? And sometimes they say it very straightly. You are stupid. Okay. Doesn't take a lot to misinterpret that. They meant it. And yet, that's their truth, not ours. And it's very important to remember, as I said earlier, that people who make us feel bad, just to make us feel bad, not parents or teachers or loved ones who are actually trying to help us along the way, not people who sit us down and say, I think you've got an issue with your ego, or I think you have an issue with anger, or I think, these issues are there. Not those people who are trying to help us, but people who are just trying to make us feel bad so they feel better, are people who themselves are miserable. And this is as true in 6th grade as it is in boardrooms across the world and yoga studios across the world and parties and gyms across the world. And so if I'm in a situation where I'm feeling anxiety, what I need to do is check in with myself. Is the truth really my truth? Is what I'm feeling in this environment really who I am? Or is it just that these people or this person is using me to feel better about themselves? It's like that great story of the teacher who says to his classroom, he draws a line on the board. And he says, okay, without using an eraser, can anyone make this line on the board shorter? And of course no one can. The only way to make the line shorter is to erase part of it. But then the teacher says, no. One way to make the line shorter, and he draws a longer line on top of it. Okay, so the lower line hasn't actually changed, but now in comparison to the longer one, it seems short. And this is sadly what happens to us. We are who we are, but we judge ourselves based on those around us. And this is where I keep coming back to we have to be self-evident. And this is where our meditation is so important, because it gives us the truth of who we are. Otherwise, I am who you say I am. I am how you look at me. I am whether you laugh at my jokes or touch my feet, or give me an A or give me a gold star. That becomes who. So whenever we're in situations that make us feel anxious, immediately we need to reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with our breath. Deep, low in the abdomen, just ground ourselves back in our truth. And then, this is the last but crucial other component. See whether we can feel within ourselves compassion for that person in front of us. And an awareness that the reason they are making us feel bad, the reason they are trying to make us feel love, is because they feel love. This is why bullies in school, how many parents have ever told their kids who are being bullied, sweetheart, it's not you, it's because he's upset or his parents are going through a divorce or whatever the story is. And this is true even when we get out of the schoolyard. people who bully others, physically, emotionally, mentally, in any way, do it because they themselves feel bad. So we check in with who we are, we connect with the divine in ourselves, and then we try to experience some compassion for whoever it is that's making us feel bad. And the only other point to reiterate again is that this isn't true when we're talking about a loved one who really cares for us, a spouse, a parent, a teacher, whatever, who really cares for us and who says to us, I think you need to stop drinking. Or, I think you've got problems with your anger, or I think you have problems with this, or whatever it is. That also sometimes produces some anxiety. Because the status quo is very safe. And very few of us want to look at ourselves. And so the first thing that we do, even when it is a loved one, a parent, a spouse, whatever, the first thing we do is we lash out at that person. It's just you. But at times like that, it's very important to really check in and ask ourselves whether our anxiety is because we don't want to hear what they're saying, even though it is true. At which point what we need to do is listen. Or our anxiety is just because they, in their own misery, are bullying and criticizing us. But those answers are within. And so it just takes us back to that experience of being self-evident.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me.
One of the most common causes of pain in relationships is we think that we can change other people. That we can, if I just yell enough, if I hit enough, if I scold enough, or if I beg enough, or if I sulk enough. We all have different ways that we go about trying to change the people in our relationships, but it actually never works. I've never heard of anyone who changed because they got scolded, who changed because they got criticized, who changed because they got condemned or hit. What we get is basic behavior modification. So yes, if every time your child leaves his jacket on the floor, you shout at him or beat him, yes, of course, he'll learn to hang up his jacket. But that's just, it's basic behavior modification. That's not what we're looking for in our relationships. The stuff that hurts us in relationships is not a jacket on the floor. What hurts us is how people treat us. Do they love us? Do they not act like they love us? Do they care for us? Do they not act like they care for us? Do they do the things that make us feel good? Do they not do the things that make us feel good? Do they do what we want them to do? Do they not do what we want them to do? This is the stuff that hurts us, and what hurts us, again, is not the behavior. It's on a deeper level. So if you say, well, it really hurts me that my husband doesn't help with the dishes. It's not the behavior. It's when he doesn't help with the dishes, what it means is that he doesn't love me, or it means that he doesn't care, or it means that he takes me for granted. It really hurts me that my child doesn't clean up their room. Why? It's not the clothes on the floor, it's what it symbolizes. It means to us, my child doesn't care. I get up every day, I go to work to earn money. I use that money to buy my child nice clothing, and then they just dump it on the floor. It means they don't care. And so it's important, first of all, for us to understand that what we're really striving for in our relationships is not the external behavior. It's the internal emotion that guides the behavior. And we know that because when your child cleans up just because you've yelled at them, or when you convince someone to help you with the dishes, or someone finally, you say, you never bring me flowers, finally they bring flowers. If you know that they've only done it because you've pressured, because you've condemned, because you've criticized, because you've cried, well, it's not satisfying. It doesn't give us what we're looking for. Then we say, well, you only did it because I begged you. You only did it because I yelled. You only did it because I told you to. What we want is that our loved ones should uppity up from within, act in the way we want them to. And that's an important place to start when we're talking about spirituality, because it's not in the behavior. If you yell, if you criticize, if you condemn, if you beg enough, chances are you could convince your loved one, the husband in this case, to spend 5 minutes a day sitting next to you while you pray or meditate. You could convince them to put maybe tilak on the image of God. You could convince them maybe to do some japa. But that's not what we want. We're not looking for behavior modification. When we say, my husband isn't spiritual, what it means is that he's not on this path. And it's very important to remember in this case that nothing deep, nothing lasting is ever accomplished by criticism, by condemnation, by hurting, by withdrawing love, by sulking. That's what most of us do. Oh, well, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to sulk, or I won't be nice to you, or I will slap you, or I will, whatever my thing is. That doesn't change the people around us. We think it does. I've got to teach them a lesson. They have to know they can't get away with this. Never works. All it does is make them resent us. So when we really want something, like for our loved one to be on a spiritual path, what's important, first of all, to remember is we cannot force it. The other important thing to remember is there's no monopoly on what a spiritual path means. Those of us who meditate think that means a spiritual path. People who do elaborate puja. They sit in the mandir, they do all, very, very elaborate and detailed puja. To them, that's a spiritual path. People who do a lot of japa, a lot of malas, that's a spiritual path. People who go to temple and sit and they chant a lot of Hanuman Chalisas, that's a spiritual path. There's no monopoly. A spiritual path means living a life that is dedicated and committed to spirit. And what spirit is what connects us. What a spiritual life is just the opposite of a material life. A material life separates us. I'm an object, you're an object, we're separate. I'm going to use you to get what I want. Whether through lust, whether through greed, whether through using you to help me get ahead, you're a contact, you're a contract. You're going to get my name in somewhere. Or you're an object I have to remove from my path. You're standing in the way of my happiness. A spiritual life says no. I'm not an object, you're not an object. We're not separate. We're just different vehicles for the same spirit. What flows through me flows through you. And I'm dedicated to connecting to the spirit within me, to living my life as spirit, as consciousness, as divinity. And therefore I'm committed to seeing you as consciousness, as divinity. And no religion, no path, no sampradaya, no particular form has a monopoly on what that means. And I say this because many times we think that people around us are not spiritual because they don't do it the way that we do it. People say this about their children a lot. They don't like to come to temple. They won't put tilak on God. They won't do their malas. And then when we talk to the kids are committed to going to school to get a degree in environmental science so they can find out a solution to everything that's polluting our earth so that they can save the planet. Well, that sounds pretty spiritual. Or our kids are spending their weekends making burritos or sandwiches and taking them to the homeless people in the streets. That sounds pretty spiritual. Just because our loved ones, spouses, children, friends, aren't living what we think is the spiritual life, doesn't mean that they're not spiritual. And that's the second piece, is before we decide that they're not spiritual, we need to open our own vision of what does it mean? Am I just seeing them through my vision of what's right? Because that's what happens to us. We all get these very stuck notions of what's right. And then we try to fit other people into those notions. How to live, what to do, what our priorities should be, how we should spend our time. And with our loved ones, it's very difficult. Why doesn't he come to yoga with me? Why does he always want to go playing golf instead? As though somehow a yoga class had the monopoly on spirituality. As though somehow we knew what was right. And so it's very important to really open our eyes and understand, they may be spiritual, but not necessarily in the way that we think about it. And the last piece is to understand that spirituality is a magnet. And rather than focus on what other people are doing, we focus on ourselves. We commit ourselves to spirituality rather than being so focused on what other people are not doing. Rather than being so focused on judging them or worrying about them, we focus on our own spirituality. And then what happens is we literally become, as Pujya Swamiji says, a magnet of spirituality. And people around us, naturally and automatically, are drawn. They may not pray the way we pray, they may not do japa the way we do japa, they may not go to the temple we go to, but they're drawn to a spiritual life. And that's the most important thing. It shows them what peace is. It shows them what real love is. And that, in our relationships, is much more important than what we think is right or the behavior modification of our loved ones. It's to really exude spirituality, to really be a magnet of it and a source of it. Our family members, our friends, they'll automatically come around because they'll understand there's something there.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
Is spirituality really so important today? I mean, is it so important that we live a spiritual life, or as we're all doing our own karma anyway, isn't it enough just to do our karma? Or do we also actually have to have that spiritual component? Here's the thing about karma. Without going into a long and detailed lecture on it, because it really is quite a very deep subject, but just really briefly in the topmost level, when we talk about working out our karma, the reason that we even mention it is that what the Bhagavad Gita explains to us, as you mentioned, is that we're all here with the karma we have to perform. But why do we have to perform it? Well, we have to perform it with the ultimate aim being that when I work through my karma, I no longer will be bound in this cycle of birth and death. I no longer will be bound to this human body, to these chains that hold us here. When I have, quote unquote, worked through my karma, I will be free. Whether we say free as in without my body, I've just merged into God, or whether we say
as Puja Swamiji emphasizes all the time, free in moksha here in our body. Because we can have that same freedom, that same moksha, still in the body. We don't have to wait for death. But the important part, as you rightly mentioned, is working through our karma. However, working through our karma is not just actions. It's not that we're put here with a to-do list. It's not like a treasure hunt. Go 3 blocks, turn left, at the fire hydrant, look to your right. The next clue will be there. Then you get the next clue. It says, find the jumping rope, jump it 15 times, turn around, walk back 10 paces. Then you'll get the next clue. It doesn't matter on a treasure hunt what mindset you're in. If you follow the instructions properly, you'll pick up all your clues, you'll get your treasure. But with the treasure being moksha, liberation, freedom, the mindset is of even more importance than the actions. And this is why being spiritual is so important. What Krishna tells us is that we are always doing action. Even if you sit down and you sit on your hands and you don't move a muscle, your mind is still thinking. You're still acting. You're still engaging in karma. And your inaction is also a karma. If while you're sitting on your hands, the person in front of you trips and falls, but because you've decided I'm not engaging in action, you don't help them. That's also karma. So as Krishna very, very rightly said, we are always engaging in action. Not doing anything is also action. Doing something is also action. So then the question becomes, well, okay, so then how do we get free? How do we work through our karma? By the mental state. The way to work through our karma is that as I'm doing it, I'm offering it to God. That it's not about me. It's not about I'm doing this for me, for my family. I'm doing it so I should get ahead. Not even that I'm doing it for my enlightenment. I'm doing it for my peace. I'm doing it for my joy. None of that. But rather, I have surrendered myself so fully to God that I have stopped trying to micromanage the world around me. I have stopped trying to control the world around me. I'm allowing myself to just be a vehicle and a vessel for God's will, not my will. Not that I was sitting on my hands, the person fell, they bled. I say, well, it must be God's plan. Well, it wasn't God's plan. It was God's plan that you should stand up and help them. That's why God gave you hands. That's why God gave you eyes to see that they just fell in front of you. When I'm acting only as a vehicle and a vessel for God's will, and it's all totally surrendered. And that is the way. That is the way to actually be free of karma. What Krishna says is, whatever you do, if you surrender it to me, that's how you become free. And there's no way that I know of to fully surrender what we do to God without being spiritual. And I'll take care of you. Exactly. But if you're not, if we're not spiritual, then we're not going to be connected to God in the way to be surrendered and to allow God to take care of us. So this is why the spiritual path is so important, because it helps us know not what to do, but how to do it. And that's the key. It's not what we're doing. It's how we're doing it and who's doing it. And that's what frees us. And lastly, quickly, I'll talk for a moment about destiny, since you raised it. Destiny is something that has brought us to right here. So, for example, all of us, it is our destiny that we are sitting right here. It is the sum total of everything we've done in the past. Past of this birth, past of previous births. Some kind of punya, something very special. You've come to the banks of Ganga, you're in a holy place. You've performed arti. Sitting in satsang at the feet of a guru. It doesn't happen automatically. It's the sum total of what we've done. That's what's brought us here. So your destiny in this moment is to be here. You can't change it. You cannot snap your fingers or rub your nose like the show that when I was really young was on TV and find yourself in Paris or London or America. You're here. And yet, where you are in your life tomorrow, next year, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, is due not only to what we've done before this moment, but what we do now. The trees that are bearing fruit in our life today are seeds that we planted in the past. If where we are today is happy, healthy, successful, those are the seeds we've planted. If where we are is unhappy, unsuccessful, unhealthy, it's seeds we've planted. It's not a reward or a punishment. And this is very important. God does not have any objective labels. God does not say health is good, sickness is bad, wealth is good, poverty is bad, being the CEO is good, being a male clerk is bad. It's us. It's us who say, I'd rather be healthy than unhealthy. I'd rather be a CEO than a male clerk. I'd rather be rich than poor. These are the labels we've put on them. Your destiny for today is created by the seeds you planted in the past. Your destiny for tomorrow and next year is the seeds you plant today. God's role in our life is how we take where we are. It's not God who's playing with the world the way kids play with dolls and say, you're a fireman, you're a policeman, you're the criminal, you're the hero. The role of God in our life, the role of the spiritual connection in our life, is to change who we are on the inside and how we take, how we respond to, what we do with the fruits of the trees that have grown from the seeds we've planted.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
When I broke my foot.
For leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, and thanks for coming back and joining us for more of inspiration and transformation.
How can I live a focused life in this multimedia society as a multifaceted person with conflicting purposes? How can we join different aspects and talents within us, including the emotional and the analytical, into one clear purpose? So many of us feel fragmented. My head versus my heart. Reason versus emotion. And yet, the deeper we look into it, the deeper we realize that we really do know. Typically when we say, well, my head says one thing, but my heart says another, in almost every case what that really means is, I know the right thing to do, but I just don't want to do it. I know the right thing to do, but I've got such an urge to do something different. And so we create this sort of hypothetical, nice-sounding head versus heart debate, when really it's much more a matter of, I know the right thing, but I don't want to do it. Or, in the opposite case, where the heart is real, I know the right thing, but it's not the programming I've been given. My brain is full of programming. What my heart tells me is right to do is not in line with the programming of my brain. But in both cases, either way, we really do know what's right. It's just there's a part of us that isn't what we would call our true deep inner voice. That has to be a little bit more awakened and opened and kind of brought along on the process. In terms of multimedia society and multifaceted personalities and our analytical and all of that, there's no aspect of spirituality that isn't compatible with analytical thinking. Spirituality does not say, don't think analytically. There certainly are some aspects of religion that do, which is why religion is so difficult for people, because in so many cases we're really asked to just believe. But deep spirituality is not anti-analytical thinking. There's no reason to feel a divide within the self. What I would say to the analytical part of you is, ask yourself whether you are prepared to resign yourself to a life that says that only that which can be weighed on a scale, whose volume can be measured in a beaker, that can be seen through a microscope or a telescope, only that which can be tangibly held or seen or heard is real. Because that's a very, very narrow life. The first thing it eliminates is love. Long before it eliminates God, it eliminates love. So the minute that we talk about science and analysis compared to spirituality, we have to say, well, wait, do you believe in love? Can't see it. Can't prove it exists. Can't measure it. And yet, we all know that it's kind of what keeps most of us going. Whether it's love for a specific being, a parent, a spouse, a child, whether it's love for humanity, whether it's love for the divine within yourself, love for God, doesn't matter. But no analysis would say, well, my analytic mind is in conflict with love. So if we're able to expand and include love, we have to be able to expand and include spirituality. And then the last piece is a multimedia society, which I would expand the question to say everything in the world, whether the person whose question it is happens to have a job or a life that's multimedia focused, but it pertains whether you're in business, whether you've got a profession, whatever. Technology, which we all use, is neither good nor bad in the same way that fire is neither good nor bad. So it cooks your food, so it burns down your house. A knife is neither good nor bad. So it turns a pumpkin into something that's edible, can be used as a murder weapon. When Oppenheimer figured out how to split the atom, this research wasn't done to wreak havoc on millions and billions of people. It was done for energy. Get things into the hands of the wrong people, they're going to wreak havoc. Get them in the hands of the right people, they're going to help us. Whether it's fire, a knife, or a split atom. And in the same way, technology. Take something like the question says multimedia, social media, whatever, connects us. How many of us are in touch with people through Facebook or email who, if we had to go back to writing letters and making phone calls, we'd never be in touch with? I mean, I can't even count the number of people from my life who I'm connected with only because we happen to be connected on Facebook. And every once in a while you see something or they see something or there's a note. You're connected. And yet, email is something that enables us to communicate with people across the world. We've got tens of thousands of people across the world who aren't able to get here and have Puja Swamiji's darshan or see the arati via technology. Wherever they are, they're able to connect. It's fantastic. And yet, it can suck our lives. It can turn us into the most self-focused, superficial people. We can start misunderstanding connection as a like on Facebook and forget what real connection is. It's a danger. But it's not the technology's fault. And so as spiritual people, whatever we're doing, we have to do it with awareness and mindfulness. I mean, this is the foundation of a spiritual life. The answer is not to refuse technology. The answer is, how can I bring mindfulness and awareness into everything so that I can use whatever the world is giving me to aid me in my mission. And there's now apps that you can use to help you meditate. And it's amazing, okay? And yet, there are apps that you could use to keep you from meditating. So it's all about where we are. And as long as we are focused and we are grounded, then there doesn't need to be, there shouldn't be this distinction between these different aspects of our lives. Ultimately, the goal of a spiritual practice is to unite all the aspects, not to keep them separate. So that whatever we do it as spiritual people on a spiritual path.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.